If you own a PS5 or you are planning to get one in 2026, this might be the single most exciting year the console has ever seen. We are talking giant AAA blockbusters, long-awaited sequels, massive open worlds, and some of the most ambitious action games developers have ever attempted. The hype levels are already through the roof, and these games are not even out yet. You have dark fantasy, sci-fi, horror remakes, open world epics, and one of the biggest releases in gaming history, all stacked into the same year. You think you have seen what the PS5 can do, but you have not seen anything until you take your first step onto the hostile alien world in Saros. Saros is Housemarque's next big game after Returnal, and people are already calling this the studio's most ambitious project ever. Housemarque proved with Returnal that they know how to blend bullet hell chaos with atmospheric sci-fi storytelling, and Saros looks like the next evolution of that idea. The game launches on March 20th, 2026, which means it is one of the earliest major PS5 releases we know for sure is coming next year. In Saros, you play as Arjun Devraj, who is sent to investigate a lost off-world colony. The planet Carcosa is moody, mysterious, and filled with alien threats that move fast and hit hard. What is already getting players excited is the roguelike inspired progression system. Even though this is a full narrative shooter, the game keeps the idea that each death teaches you something and helps you build a stronger loadout. That makes every run feel meaningful without losing the story. The visuals are stunning, and the enemy designs look like they take the bullet hell formula and push it to the edge. If you liked Returnal or want a truly next-gen sci-fi shooter, Saros is the first huge title dropping in 2026, and it has a real shot at becoming an instant classic. Imagine stepping back into a world where every enemy can tear you apart and every victory feels earned. That is exactly what Nioh 3 is promising. Team Ninja officially confirmed Nioh 3 for release on February 6th, 2026, so this one is coming up fast. The Nioh series helped define the modern action RPG space with its deep combat, punishing difficulty, and blend of Japanese history and supernatural mythology. Nioh 3 looks like it intends to take everything fans loved about the first two games and crank it up even higher. The world is once again filled with yokai and twisted spirits, each requiring specific strategies and punishing time to defeat. Combat in Nioh has always been a mix of precision and aggression, and the early previews of Nioh 3 suggest even more weapon stances, more combos, more parry depth, and more customization. Players who love Souls-style games or who enjoy a serious challenge have had this one circled since the moment it was announced. Imagine the studio that built the best superhero games of the last decade suddenly turning all of that talent toward one of the most popular Marvel characters ever created. That is exactly why Marvel's Wolverine is one of the most anticipated PS5 games of 2026. Insomniac Games shook the entire industry with Marvel's Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2. The moment they announced Wolverine as a PS5 exclusive, fans instantly knew this would not be a small side project. Everything Insomniac touches ends up polished, cinematic, and packed with detail, and the early teasers for Wolverine already suggest a darker tone and more mature story. This is not the quippy New York swing-through that Spider-Man is. This is a gritty character piece built around a hero who fights brutally, heals slowly, and carries decades of trauma. Insomniac has said the story will stand on its own, disconnected from Spider-Man's universe, which gives them freedom to explore new villains, new environments, and a tone that leans more into the violent side of Marvel. Now imagine a Marvel game directed by the person who created the Uncharted formula. That alone should tell you why Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra has people unbelievably excited. This game is being developed by Skydance New Media and is led by Amy Hennig, the creative director behind the original Uncharted trilogy. When Marvel announced she was working on a narrative-driven action-adventure set during World War II, expectations shot through the roof. Marvel 1943 focuses on Captain America and the Black Panther of that era. The idea of these two iconic heroes starting off as rivals before being forced to work together against Hydra is exactly the kind of character-driven storytelling fans have been wanting from Marvel games. Everything shown so far highlights cinematic presentation, detailed environments, and dramatic set pieces that lean into the strengths of Hennig's style. Instead of a giant open world, the game uses focused story chapters with tight pacing, emotional beats, and explosive action moments. The setting gives the story a grounded feel while allowing for Marvel's signature spectacle. Hydra laboratories, occupied cities, Wakandan tech, and wartime espionage all come together to create a fresh identity that stands apart from the usual superhero formula. Now imagine a game that blends cinematic story scenes, high fantasy combat, open world exploration, and huge set pieces all into one package. That is Crimson Desert. Pearl Abyss has been working on this game for years, and everything shown so far makes it clear that they want this to be a flagship action-adventure game for the PS5 era. Crimson Desert is expected to land in 2026, which means this could easily end up as one of the standout games of the year. The combat looks fast, brutal, and weighty, with a mix of melee weapons, grappling, magic, and physics-driven abilities. People who love games like Assassin's Creed, The Witcher, or Ghost of Tsushima are keeping a very close eye on Crimson Desert. If the game delivers even half of what the previews have shown, it could be one of the biggest surprises of 2026. Imagine being hunted by one of the most iconic killers in horror history while trapped in the quiet suburban nightmare of Haddonfield. That is exactly what Halloween the game promises, and hype exploded after its gameplay reveal during Sony's State of Play in September. IllFonic, known for Predator Hunting Grounds and Friday the 13th, the game, is now bringing Halloween to life with a mix of single-player story content and tense multiplayer modes. Halloween is an asymmetrical horror sandbox where you either play as a civilian trying to survive the night or as Michael Myers himself. Civilians must guide townspeople to safety, scavenge for supplies, and find a way to call the police, all while avoiding a killer who moves through shadows with terrifying speed. The single-player content aims to capture the feeling of being isolated in Haddonfield, while multiplayer adds chaotic, unpredictable encounters that horror fans love. Take one of the most influential early 2000s RPGs and rebuild it for a modern audience. That is the mission behind Gothic Remake. The original Gothic was a cult classic. It offered a gritty open world full of danger, player freedom, and factions that reacted to your choices. Alchemia Interactive is remaking the entire game from the ground up using modern graphics and physics while keeping the core identity of the original. So far, fans are impressed by how closely the remake sticks to the atmosphere of the old game. The prison colony setting is dark, dangerous, and full of layered interactions. NPCs have daily routines, animals behave aggressively and unpredictably, and the exploration feels immersive in a way few RPGs today attempt. Gothic Remake is still in development with a targeted early 2026 release, and it has the potential to introduce an entirely new generation of players to a franchise that shaped early open-world RPG design. Picture a world where the line between humanity and monstrosity is razor-thin, and every battle feels like a desperate fight for survival. That is the tone Code Vein 2 is bringing to PS5 when it launches in 2026. The first Code Vein became known for its stylish combat, emotional story, and memorable companion mechanics. Code Vein 2 looks like it is pushing all of that even further. The sequel has a noticeably darker tone, sharper visuals, and a much larger world. One of the biggest upgrades is the combat system. Everything from attack timing to weapons transformations to mobility has been enhanced to make fights smoother and more impactful. Companions were one of the standout elements of the original game, and the sequel now gives them more emotional weight. Early previews show much more cinematic dialogue, more dramatic cutscenes, and a stronger focus on relationships in a world filled with tragedy. Now imagine stepping into a world where the Resident Evil franchise evolves once again with new characters, new horrors, and a fresh tone that still respects its survival horror roots. That is exactly what Resident Evil Requiem promises as the 9th mainline entry in Capcom's legendary series. Releasing on February 27th, 2026, it is already one of the biggest horror titles of the year. Requiem reportedly introduces a new protagonist and a new setting, marking another shift for the franchise, much like Resident Evil 7 did. While Capcom has kept many specifics quiet, early teasers and interviews point toward a return to atmospheric, slow burn horror with tighter environments and a stronger emphasis on survival. The creature designs shown so far look grounded and unsettling, leaning more into psychological dread than pure body horror. The game runs on the newest version of the RE engine, offering detailed environments, moody lighting, and some of the most realistic facial animation the series has ever had. Now for our number one. There are big games, and then there are cultural earthquakes. GTA 6 is the second kind. Rockstar has confirmed GTA 6 for PlayStation 5 with an initial expected 2025 launch on some platforms, but currently looking like a November 2026 arrival. Regardless of the exact day, what is guaranteed is that GTA 6 is going to dominate, as it is one of the most highly anticipated games ever. The game takes players back to Vice City in a modern, massive open world that feels alive in a way no Rockstar game has before. The map looks enormous and filled with detail. NPC behavior seems more advanced than anything in the series. Every leak, which there has been a lot of, and trailer has sparked days of non-stop conversation and speculation. The expectations for GTA 6 are so high that even a normal release would be historic. But Rockstar rarely aims for normal. When this game drops, it will break records, break the internet, and define an entire generation of open world design. No list of 2026 PS5 games would be complete without it. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thanks so much for checking out. Which one of these games are you the most excited for? And let me know if I missed any, because, you know, I need to know. I need to stay up to date on my Gamer 2026 releases. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski. I'll see you again soon. Goodbye.